This shift is happening in various industries at varying speeds. The first set of industries, if you really think about it, the first set of industries that have been impacted by platforms are the information-intensive industry. So if you think of it, media is a very information-intensive industry. The value is in the information. The pipe pushes out information, a platform comes in, that industry gets completely changed. If you think of telecom and the handset manufacturing industry, the real value was in the software that ran these applications. So the telecom industry got disrupted and moved onto a platform model. Today we're seeing that happen in another industry, which is becoming very information intensive, the automobile industry. People often say that cars are smartphones on wheels because the value of cars is not in how fast they go. That the whole physical efficiency of cars is reaching a stage where the marginal value improvement is very low. The real value improvement that's happening is on the software side, and that's where platforms are becoming and are going to become increasingly important as we go forward. So the moment we see an industry becoming information intensive, we start seeing platforms coming in and disrupting the way things move. But there are certain sets of industries that are highly information intensive and yet are not being disrupted at the same rate. And that is because these industries are heavily regulated. In particular, there are two industries that are fundamentally information intensive industries, but the disruption is very slow. Banking is one such industry because if you think of it, banking is just about numbers, it's fundamentally about information. Healthcare is another such industry. We often think of healthcare as a services-intensive industry, but it's actually an information-intensive industry. Everything is built around patient data. It's just that we haven't treated it like a data industry. What we see in both of these industries is that the cost of failure is really high. If you get matched, if you get shown an inappropriate video on YouTube, the cost of failure is not that high. But if you are connected to the wrong doctor by a healthcare platform, the cost of failure is really high. You could lose your life. Or if you end up giving your loan to somebody who defaults because the data told you to do that, then the cost of failure is really high. And that is why these industries are taking much longer to move in this direction. But increasingly, we're seeing that kind of shift happening in these industries as well. What we will increasingly see is that policy will have to move in response to this shift for these industries to completely move in the direction of platforms. And finally, the industries that we think are the least affected or the most resistant are resource-intensive industries, like the mining industry. And I gave an example at the beginning where as the Internet of Things becomes really widespread, we are increasingly moving to the automated mine, where mining completely becomes automated, and over time, as central intelligence starts developing about how to mine, where to mine, the mine becomes more efficient. But as you gather more data and you start opening up the data, you can enable a whole ecosystem of service providers around your mine, and you can move into a completely platform model. And so increasingly, we're seeing this happening in resource-intensive industries as well, where digitization is coming in the form of the Internet of Things. If you look at all of these industries, you see certain things being repeated very often in various ways. One is that we're starting to see algorithms becoming the middle manager. When you think of a traditional taxi company, there is a middle manager who dispatches taxis based on requests that come in. But on Uber, that middle manager is becoming an algorithm. And so the idea of connecting resources to where the resources are needed within an organization is increasingly moving to algorithms. If you think of how knowledge works within organizations. Organizations scale because they scale their internal knowledge. But that internal knowledge largely stays in the minds of people. And as people move in and out, organizations take different kinds of measures to retain that knowledge, whether it is in the form of documentation, in the form of training, they take different kinds of measures. But increasingly, if you start thinking of applying artificial intelligence and connecting all the people in an organization to that central AI, people could move in and out of the organization, and the organization's learning would still continue scaling over time. So the role of the middle manager, we'll gradually see increasingly moving towards algorithms as we move forward.